Buckle up, folks, because NASA has just announced some shocking news about one of the most infamous geological features in the world. The San Andreas Fault has cracked, and the results are going to leave you speechless. Residents of Silicon Valley have been plagued with anxiety for a very long time because of the San Andreas Fault. It is a source of seismic activity, and a significant earthquake is due to occur there soon. The issue is also rumored to be on the approach of bringing about a significant catastrophe. The San Andreas Fault has been identified by researchers as being dangerously close to producing a magnitude 9 or 10 earthquake. If you live in any of these 3 states that were listed, you need to make sure that you are always up to date on the most recent news. If you are in an area prone to earthquakes, you should take all necessary safety measures. But before all this, let's try to explore San Andreas. Chapter about San Andreas. Have you ever been aware of the fault that runs across the San Andreas region? If you are from California or have ever visited the Golden State, the chances are good that you have encountered the term before. But do you have a clear understanding of what it is and why it is of such critical importance? The San Andreas Fault can be found running for close to 1,200 kilometers across the state of California. At the boundary between the two plates, this location is where the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate meet and grind against one another. On the surface of the Earth's liquid mantle are what are termed tectonic plates, which are massive slabs of rock that gently move around. The fact that the San Andreas Fault has been the epicenter of some of the largest and most destructive earthquakes in the history of the U.S. is one of the things that give it its allure and also makes it a little bit risky. When the enormous pressure that is built up by the tectonic plates rubbing against one another is suddenly released, the result is an earthquake. The most recent big earthquake that occurred on the San Andreas Fault, which took place in 1906, caused severe damage to San Francisco and the area surrounding it. But the San Andreas Fault is not simply a possible risk, it is also a wonder of modern science. Geologists and other scientists do study faults in order to improve their understanding of earthquakes and their ability to anticipate them. In addition, scientists make use of the fissure to gain a better understanding of the motion and development of the Earth's tectonic plates over the course of millions of years. The next time you are in California and you feel the ground shaking, you are standing on the San Andreas Fault, one of the geological features that are considered to be among the most interesting and significant in the entire globe. Chapter How Dangerous It Can Be. The San Andreas Fault is a ticking time bomb that poses a significant danger to millions of people living in California. This major geological fault runs along the western coast of the state and marks the boundary between the North American and Pacific tectonic plates. The fault is notorious for producing some of the largest and most destructive earthquakes in California's history, including the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the 1994 Northridge earthquake. Experts predict that a major earthquake along the San Andreas Fault could have catastrophic consequences, in addition to the loss of life and property damage. It can also trigger a series of environmental disasters. The fault has the potential to rupture for hundreds of miles, causing massive tsunamis that could devastate coastal communities. Inland, the earthquake could trigger landslides, liquefaction, and other secondary effects that could exacerbate the damage. The danger of the San Andreas Fault is not limited to earthquakes. The fault also has the potential to cause other types of disasters, including droughts and floods. The fault is responsible for the formation of the Central Valley, a large agricultural region in California. However, if the fault were to rupture, it could cause the valley to sink and cut off the water supply to millions of people, leading to drought and famine. Conversely, if the fault were to shift and block the flow of the Sacramento River, it could cause catastrophic flooding in the Sacramento Valley. Chapter: Is it actually what has been indicated? The San Andreas Fault is divided into 3 primary parts that can move independently. The plates in all 3 are attempting to move past each other in opposing directions, much like 2 hands rubbing against each other. Much of the time, the plates in the southern and northern parts are locked, stuck together in a hazardous, motionless embrace. This causes stressors to accumulate over time, whether it is years, decades, or millennia. Ultimately, a breaking point is reached. The 2 sides surge wildly past each other, and an earthquake occurs. The plates slip past each other at a comfortable, constant 26 millimeters or so per year in the central part, which separates the other 2. This prevents strains from accumulating and no major earthquakes occur. This is known as a seismic creep. The San Andreas Fault in California, the creeping middle part, which is the topic of a recent study, is highlighted in yellow. The San Andreas Fault Observatory at Deep, or SAFOD, represented by the red star, took rock samples from over 2 miles underground. At least that's what most scientists have been saying thus far. A new examination of rocks excavated nearly 2 miles beneath the surface reveals that the core part has been the site of numerous significant earthquakes, some of which may have been quite recent. The San Andreas Fault poses numerous dangers. The northern part was the site of the devastating 1906 San Francisco earthquake, which killed 3,000 people and devastated much of the city. Also included is the 1989 M6.9 Loma Prieta earthquake, which killed over 60 people and destroyed a major elevated roadway. The southern part was responsible for the 1994 M6.7 Northridge earthquake near Los Angeles, which killed around 60 people. Several scientists believe it is storing energy for an event on the scale of 1906. The middle part, on the other hand, looks to be harmless. Only one little location towards its southern end is known to create genuine earthquakes. There, magnitude 6 events, not particularly dangerous by normal standards, occur every 20 years or so. Because of their frequency, scientists intending to examine indications that may indicate an impending earthquake has established a huge observatory atop the fault near the city of Parkfield. It includes a 3.2-kilometer deep borehole from which rock cores were extracted, as well as monitoring sensors both above and below ground. Coffey and her colleagues examined rock from near the bottom of the borehole. When earthquake faults move, friction along the moving sections can cause temperatures to rise hundreds of degrees higher than the surrounding rocks. This heats the rocks, modifying the organic compound content of any sedimentary strata along the fault route. The researchers discovered many such changed compositions in a stretch of highly disturbed sedimentary rock between 3,192 and 3,196 meters below the surface in the latest study. They claim that the blackish, crumbly material has evidence of more than 100 earthquakes. The fault appeared to have leaped more than 1.5 meters in the majority of cases. This would imply a magnitude 6.9 earthquake, similar to the disastrous Loma Prieta and Northridge catastrophes. But many of them may have been larger, according to the researchers, because their method of assessing earthquake magnitude is constantly growing. They believe the quakes along the middle part were similar to earlier significant San Andreas earthquakes, such as the one that devastated San Francisco. The current official California earthquake hazard model, which is used to set building regulations and insurance rates, does allow for the possibility of a large central section rupture. Yet, given the lack of evidence for any such preceding occurrence, the inclusion of this possibility arrived at by mathematical calculations was controversial. The current study looks to be the first to show that such quakes have happened in the area. According to the authors, they may have started in the middle section, or more likely, started to the north or south and migrated through the central. A magnified microscope image shows a sedimentary rock that has been physically changed as a result of an earthquake. During fault movement, the slip layer, green section, was heated. The actual field of view is only a millimeter wide. So when did these earthquakes occur? Trenches dug by paleoseismologists over the core area revealed no disturbed soil layers that would suggest surface quakes in the last 2,000 years, about the limit for detection using that method in this location. In geologic terms, though, 2,000 years is a blink of an eye. Also, the excavations may have missed a lot of quakes that did not necessarily shatter the surface at specific locations. To answer this question, the researchers developed a second novel technique. The biomarkers are found in very thin bands ranging from microscopic to a few millimeters broad. Only a few inches or feet distant, the granite heats up enough to force out some or all of the naturally existing gas argon. Other scientists have long utilized the ratio of radioactive potassium to argon, into which potassium slowly decays, to determine the ages of rocks, which is convenient for the authors. The greater the ratio of argon to potassium, the older the rock. As a result, if some or all of the argon is forced out by earthquake-induced heat, the radioactive clock is reset, and the rock seems younger than the equivalent neighboring unheated rock. This is precisely what the team discovered. They analyzed sediments that developed tens of millions of years ago in an ancient Pacific basin that was subducted beneath California. The potassium-argon clock revealed that the ages of rocks surrounding the thin quake slide zones were as young as 3.2 million years. This provides a time range, albeit a hazy one, because scientists are still unsure how to assess the amount of argon that was driven out, and hence how thoroughly the clock may have been reset. This means that the most recent quakes might have occurred as recently as a few hundred or thousand years ago, according to Coffey. In fact, some could have occurred as recently as a few hundred or 1,000 years ago. The team is now working on a new project to improve age interpretations. Overall, our findings underscore the relevance of including the central San Andreas Fault and other creeping faults in seismic hazard assessments, the scientists conclude. William Ellsworth, a geophysicist at Stanford University who has led the research at the drill site, pointed out that while a possible big quake is included in the state's official hazard assessment, most earthquake scientists think that they happen rarely, as tectonic strain is not accumulating at significant rates, if at all, along it at the present time, he said. Since earthquake evidence is readily destroyed by the creep, she explained. If this holds up, it's the first sign of a large seismic rupture in this portion of the fault. She explained that if a large earthquake can tear through the creeping section, it means that a large earthquake could start at the very southern tip of the San Andreas, travel through the central section, and continue all the way up to the end of the northern section, the so-called big one that people like to speculate about. I'm excited about this new evidence, and I'm hoping that we can utilize it to better limit this aspect of our model. How concerned should Californians be? People should not be concerned, said Stephen Cox, a geologist at Lamont Doherty and study co-author. California's building codes are currently fairly good. Seismic activity is unavoidable. Work like this assists us in determining the most significant conceivable event and assists everyone in preparing. Sidney Hemming and Gisela Winkler of Lamont Doherty, as well as Kelly Bradbury of Utah State University, are the study's other co-authors. Genevieve Coffey is currently with GNS Science in New Zealand, and Pratigya Polisar and Heather Savage are at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Thank you so much for watching my video. We hope you found the video informative and engaging. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more great content.